welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out. Today is an interesting topic, one that, might get me in trouble, but probably not. I just wanted to share my thoughts on spirituality and sexuality and how they intersect, because in a lot of religions, there are some interesting views on sex and sexuality, and I kind of wanted to share those and how they affect my life and what my beliefs kind of are, and open this conversation up a bit and talk about how that plays out in the modern world. So let's just get right into it. I have my plants around me, my children, and my water, so I'm good to go. So let's start at the beginning. I was raised Orthodox Christian, if you didn't know, and I was baptized and confirmed in the church, and I remember going to these classes every day, learning about Jesus and reading the Bible, and something that they did talk about strongly was abstinence and celibacy, and this was around the time that I was going through puberty. And I feel like I've always just been a very naturally sexual person. I don't know if it's because I'm a Scorpio, and Scorpios are said to be the horniest sign in the zodiac. I mean, I think it's just puberty, honestly, just all those hormones running through. But I did start masturbating when I was really young, and I remember going to those classes and feeling so bad about it, and I would step out of my room in my home, and someone, I'm not gonna say who, would be like, "You better not be masturbating," and just really intense about it, and I was just like, and I felt like I wasn't good enough for God because I was having these natural urges, and I felt like if I'm naturally experiencing this, then why does it make me unworthy? This is just how I was taught, that it's a sin. It's a sin to masturbate or indulge those sexual thoughts or to have sex before marriage. And a few years later, I ended up learning about Buddhism. I was in church with my mom and my dad one day, and he told me he always wanted to be a monk, and I asked him what that was, and he was like, it was someone who studies and meditates and prays all day and spends a lot of time, studying and devoting their lives. And I was like, interesting. I'd never heard of any other religion because I was raised Christian, and I don't know, it wasn't an open conversation of there's so many different things you can believe out there, and that kind of was the first little spark that lit a flame that soon lit a fire within me as I got older. I'm gonna take this off. So yeah, that was kind of my first introduction to religion, and it's just weird that I was getting these hormones and going through puberty at the same time that I was getting confirmed in the church and questioning if I was just a sinful, evil, bad person for having sexual urges. And I think that a lot of people who grow up with this faith maybe struggle with that. And I always thought that I wanted to do that, but only because I thought it would make me more pure. And soon I just felt like I wasn't worthy enough for God's love, and that I was already so impure for masturbating, so what was the point kind of thing? And why should I feel guilty about something that's naturally happening to me? And it was just this big moral debate in my head that I didn't even realize until a little bit later. I was like, damn, I was really contemplating whether I was just good enough and pure enough. Didn't really align with Christianity for other reasons as well, but a few years later I started learning about Buddhism, and I currently align a lot with Hinduism. I don't like to say I'm a certain religion, I just like to say that my beliefs align with a religion, because I am not that. I can't just put that label upon myself and be like, yeah, I'm Hindu. I can only practice Hinduism. I can only read and study and live my life in some kind of sacred way that follows that beliefs, but it's never actually going to be part of my identity in a way. So I just like to say, yeah, I really align with those beliefs. So in the yogic philosophy, the very traditional yogic philosophy, one of the main goals was always to take a step back from these gross human experiences. By gross, I mean dense. I mean all of our sensory experiences that give us pleasure so easily and so quickly. Sight, smell, sound, taste, and that includes orgasm, and that includes just quick, easy, sensual pleasure, because it is so easy to experience and so almost intense in these human bodies that it can make it so much harder for us to pierce the subtler and subtler spiritual layers within us. And so the goal in a lot of the tradition of yoga and in many sects of Hinduism was to just completely renounce all human worldly experiences so that we could tap into the divine, this subtle undercurrent of electromagnetic waves all around us. I think a lot of the traditions say that this body was just impure, that this body had so many impurities, and that we should just try to fully relinquish in our spiritual selves and kind of cast it away. And there is something called brahmacharya, which basically means not indulging in any sexual activity in Jainism, Hinduism, in a lot of Buddhist monasteries. That is the renunciation of sex and marriage for the purpose of fully devoting to your teachings. In the context of 4 stages of life, brahmacharya is one of the 4 stages of life from childhood, I think, to the age of 24, where you don't indulge in any sexual activity, including sexual thoughts or fantasies, so that you can study with a master, a guru, for the purpose of attaining spiritual liberation. In one of my favorite books, Autobiography of a Yogi, which is about Paramahamsa Yogananda's life, he would talk about his experience in a monastery, in a hermitage, and anyone who was indulging in sex or sexual fantasies, they automatically, I don't know if they were kicked out, but they were viewed as not taking the spiritual practice seriously and not fully devoting themselves to the guru, because these thoughts were impure, and they were just, I think because they're so intense and because sex is just such a all-fulfilling pleasure, it can just really be hard not to think about once you start indulging in those thoughts. And once you have sex, it's hard not to want to have sex again. And so people, the young boys who would come into the hermitage who wanted to sit with the guru, they were dismissed, or they weren't allowed to stay for long periods of time because they were indulging in these sexual thoughts. And also in the Bhagavad Gita, as interpreted by Paramahamsa Yogananda, that's the version I really like, one of the precepts or steps in Hinduism is to practice brahmacharya. And if you want to be a true yogi, apparently it's said that you have to be celibate and not be expelling your sexual energy out. And then there are also the sadhus. I think there are about 4 to 5 million sadhus in India who are monks, or really anyone in Hinduism and Jainism who has renounced this worldly life. Some practice asceticism, which is just full renunciation of all worldly things, including working for money and wearing clothes. Some go to caves and spend years meditating and not talking to anyone. Others spend most of their lives naked. Some chant, pray, meditate in groups. Some smoke hashish all day. Some keep their arm up for just years at a time. And most of them are devoting their lives to Shiva, Shakti, Vishnu, various gods in Hinduism, and they do this as a way to, connect with their true spiritual divinity and not be distracted by Maya, the veil of illusion, which is talked about a lot in the Bhagavad Gita, or at least is mentioned, and I think that's a really big point. And so I think a lot of people, as it is a bit lineage based, try to completely push away from all these worldly experiences, and many sadhus are celibate, although some do practice tantra in a way to use sex as part of their practice, and then it becomes so transcendental that it is beyond worldly things, because it takes them even past the point of this physical body and is just fully on the spiritual realms. So there are so many different sects of each of these different groups. And the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, was Indian, and he was an Indian prince, and he tried to be an ascetic. He tried to step away from all worldly materials and try to become enlightened that way. And after 7 years, he came back and said, hey, this isn't the way. You don't have to experience self-induced suffering to become enlightened. And that's kind of when the middle path started to form, and Buddha reached enlightenment at the age of 35, and it was the middle way, not completely renouncing everything and walking around naked and living your life begging for food, and also not completely living with lavish things and diamonds and jewels all over, but a middle path in between the two. And that's how he found enlightenment. That's what worked for him. I also really like the Buddha because he always just expressed following your own path. And I'm pretty sure when he was passing away, he didn't want his story to be written. He didn't want his devotees and his followers to do exactly what he did, because he understood that everyone is going to have a different path, and if everyone tried to do exactly what he did, not having the same experiences as him, that wouldn't automatically equal enlightenment and just full inner knowing. and resting in that place of samadhi. I really appreciate that because I'm a big believer in that, and within Buddhism, you are allowed to question Buddhism and practice other religions, and I really appreciated that, and that's kind of why I feel like I practice both Buddhism and Hinduism in my life in different ways. This world has become so modernized, and it's a lot different from back in the day when a lot of people didn't have electricity after dark, and there wasn't constant entertainment around us, and there wasn't, I guess, all these opportunities for worldly success. When some of these very, very old Vedic texts were written, and a lot of the yogic lineage, a lot of the yogic writings were written, they were in the caves in the Himalayan mountains practicing pranayama and yoga asana, and I think that it has had to adapt a little bit in this modern world for it to be accessible for us, and we definitely see that today in so many different kinds of yoga and meditations and pranayamas, and it's become very trendy and it's become marketable. Nowadays, I feel as the feminine is rising and so many women are being seen and heard and empowered, and trans people and women of color and non-binary, everyone is kind of having their own little revolutions of their identity and saying, no, we deserve to be treated equally, and who we are isn't wrong, and what we feel isn't wrong, and our feelings and our perceptions are valid. And at least that's what I feel. I live in a very progressive place. I live in New York, but it just definitely always feels like people are just owning their true selves, and on social media you see that a lot, people just posting nudes, and it seems like we're a very sexual culture, at least in America at this point in time. There's like always strippers in rap music videos, and on billboards boobs are used to sell things, and it can be, I think, harder to access authentic, deep spiritual practice in a place with so many distractions. At the same time, I don't think that we're wrong for that. I feel like everything that we're absorbing becomes a part of us in a way, and so like if we're just seeing sexualization of the female body everywhere, I feel like naturally we will start to view ourselves that way, or start to view other women that way, or just be more sexual within our own lives. And in some ways, I do feel like there's almost this like sexual liberation wave, as a lot of people I know are using sex to heal. And Tantra, I didn't really talk about the tantric lineage. Tantrikas and tantric men were using Tantra as a way to burn through their fears and limitations, and would meditate on dead bodies. There are some sadhus in India who like eat food out of a human skull and see themselves as so beyond this human experience that they're pretty much already dead, because they're fully resting in their spiritual, omnipresent, energetic selves. And in Tantra, that was kind of the original practice, was burning through the fear of death. And they would meditate in graveyards and on dead bodies, and yes, they would use sex. There's also tantric yoga, which is what I teach and practice. And nowadays, I think that tantric sex is like becoming really popular, and something that a lot of people are using to heal their traumas and to awaken to their own inner power. And I think that goes along with the rise of the divine feminine, as I'm sure a lot of you heard, like the feminine is rising, the masculine is healing, and we'll meet in the middle, hopefully. Tons of people are posting nudes online, and so many people are healing through nudity, as like I definitely have in my journey, and I think that's beautiful. I think that we're just in an interesting shift in paradigms and belief systems. I'm just here to witness that. I don't renounce sex in my life, and I feel like in many ways that wouldn't feel natural to me, and I'm definitely very aware of my sexual energy and don't just try to dispel it outwards all the time. I'm very mindful with when I have sex and the kind of sex that I have, and connecting to my breath and rising the energy up my spine, and not constantly having sex as a way to just distract myself or to repress a feeling or to have instant feelings of gratification. I think maybe when I was really depressed, I used to do that, just use sex to feel good and have a little bit of a high and then come back down. But I just try to be aware. I believe that you can do anything in a sacred way. I believe you can be a doctor in a sacred way, or work at a fast food restaurant and have just sacred intention in your heart, and that is a spiritual life, and that compassionate awareness can be brought into every area of your life, especially into yourself and your own urges. And it just never felt good to say that my natural biological, like evolutionary urges were wrong and bad and evil and sinful. They were already being expressed before I even really learned about religion and could really figure out what they meant to me. It was just like my body was already shifting and changing. Although I do love yoga and love Hinduism, that's just a part of it that I haven't fully adopted into my life. I will definitely go celibate again at some point in my life. I went celibate for 9 months and that was really amazing and healing, and I would do it again. But at this point I do use sex as a way to just rise tantric energy and cultivate Jing energy, and that's part of the Taoist belief system, is that there's so much energy in our reproductive organs because they're used to create new life. And so every month, at least for anyone with a yoni, they're releasing an egg, and that is such a big way that we deplete energy and we can't get it back. Like, we just naturally lose an egg, and that's like life force that's leaving the body. What we can do is use the ovaries and the sexual energy that lingers there and rise it up to fill ourselves back up from that energy that we're losing, and to just have sex that isn't depleting, have sex that is really fulfilling and that can be used for intentional purposes and manifesting and just so many beautiful things like that. And that's kind of what I practice in my life, and I just take little nuggets from each that I feel I can really apply into my life and that I really believe in. We all have different belief systems as a result of our conditioning, and the thing is, they're all valid, and I don't think anyone is necessarily wrong, because in their reality that's just what's true and right for them, even if it doesn't align with mine. I just think that sexual urges are really natural, and I have so many friends from all different walks of their spiritual religions who had their sexuality fully repressed, and it has been so damaging to them and has been something that they've been trying to heal their whole lives. Whether Christianity or Buddhism, they're still trying to heal those wounds of like telling themselves that they're bad for wanting to masturbate or touch themselves or having a wet dream, or now they're just struggling with feeling so insecure about their sexuality because they just never explored it and things like that. So I just think that it should always be something that we're aware of, our sexual energy. I don't really know why I wanted to make this video. Seems kind of random, but I literally only had 2 sex talks in my life. The first one I had was when I was in 5th grade, and it was all very like PG-13, and everyone was excited to get their period. And then the next one I had was literally in senior year. My parents never talked to me about sex. I only got talked to about sex, I guess, in those little church groups that I would go to where they would say just be celibate, and that was the end of the conversation. And I did start masturbating at a young age, and then I also had my first like sexual experiences at a very young age. I think I was like 14 or 15, and I remember my mom asking me about them one day, and I was so upset that I had that experience and that felt awkward and weird and scary, and that I had no one to talk to about it, and that I felt pressured to be in that situation. I didn't want it to happen, that I slammed the door on my mom when she asked me about it. Like, we were in the car, she was dropping me off at a friend's house, and she was like, "Did you hook up with so-and-so?" I didn't have sex with them, but we had some sexual exchange, and I was so just sad about that exchange that happened that I just slammed the door on my mom, and I'd never done that before. I was never rude to my mom. I always saw her as my angel, and I always just wanted to love her and be so nice to her because I saw people just being shitty to her. So I was like, I am going to love this woman so much, and I'm never going to say I hate her, and I'm never going to raise my voice at her. And when I slammed that door on her, like, my heart sank, because I was like, I can't go back from that. Like, I have now disrespected her in some way, and my heart just like dropped down to my toes, and I was like, I was just so upset that I wasn't made to feel safe in the world, and that I got myself into a sexual experience when I wasn't ready, and that I didn't feel good about, and it wasn't talked about in my home like pretty much at all until years later, after I lost my virginity. Yeah, maybe things would be different if we had more open dialogue on it, but that little resentment already started to grow because I didn't have anyone guiding me or giving me rules. Like I've mentioned in the past, I had absolutely no rules growing up, so I could sneak out whenever I wanted. It wasn't even really sneaking out, it was just walking out the front door, coming back at 5 a.m. and no one noticing that you were gone. Like, there were no boundaries for me to even push through because there were no rules, and anytime I skipped school, intentionally or unintentionally, my mom would just write an excuse note. But I think that there can be like just a middle ground between like not forcing your child to repress their natural sexual feelings and fully letting them explore them and just go fucking crazy and go to orgies, you know? I think there's definitely a middle ground, and that's just what I'm trying to practice in a way. And also when it comes to like nudity and sexuality, I spend so much time in my life naked, and my friends will come over and I'm just there with like a tiny little sports bra and no pants on, and I'm just like, howdy. Or I'll go to my friends' houses and they just have their boobs out, and it's like not even something I think about or process or register. I'm just like, hey, and we just hang out naked. And I've been doing that since senior year of high school, and it has helped me heal so much. But when I post bits of it online on Instagram or on YouTube, people immediately just perceive it in a way that I'm trying to show off. That is not my intention at all. I have always just shared parts of my life, probably overshared like I'm doing in this video, but I'm just an open book, and I love to share the ways that I've healed, and one of those has been nudity. I guess I understand why when some people see that, they're like, oh, she's doing it for views and attention, and if she didn't have this body, she wouldn't be doing this. Just wants to show off, like I get that, but in reality, I have wanted to wish this body away for so much of my life. I have harmed this body, I have wanted to get rid of this body, and it all started from such a young age, from feeling like my existence was causing other people's pain, because I was a little girl watching someone I love get literally thrown to the ground and beaten because of me. And it's a long story, but I, from a very young age, just had that instilled belief that my existence is causing suffering for others and my family. We didn't have money, and I felt like I'm a financial burden on my family. Like, we can't even afford to like feed all of us. I have several siblings, and then I was bullied for being Asian, and I fully resented my Japanese lineage, my Venezuelan lineage. I was like, why can't I just be white? I told myself I was white for most of my life. Up until like 2 years ago, I was like, I'm white. I didn't know that I was a woman of color or what that even meant, because I was just repressing my ethnic background so much because of the bullying that I experienced. And then I was also bullied for having boobs and for developing at a young age by so many girls who were just jealous I was getting attention from boys that I didn't even ask for. And so it's been like such a journey and so many layers of parts of myself that I just wanted to hide away in a closet. And you know, I've healed so much of that, and only recently in the past like 2.5 years have I truly felt like so just good within my body, and I've stopped cutting myself and I've stopped wishing it away. And so when I post a photo on Instagram feeling like really empowered, I think a lot of people who just stumble across my videos or any of my content, they're like, oh, this girl is so happy. Of course she's happy. She has a beautiful body and a beautiful life, and she's just showing off, when that's not the case. But I am aware of the effect that it can have on people, and I never want people to think that you have to be beautiful to meditate or you have to be beautiful to be a good person. I truly think that beauty shines from within and makes someone's whole face and life illuminate and glow and just be so full of love. And that's my belief. Love is my religion. I can fully say that like love is my religion, and that's what I practice above all things. Love and compassion for myself and for others, non-violence toward myself and toward others. Yeah, I do know that it can trigger people in videos on YouTube where I show more skin, or you know, I have what I eat in a day and my body's in the thumbnail. I understand that that's like kind of fucked up, because people are going to watch that and think, if I eat like this person, then maybe I'll look like that person. And so I decided I'm going to stop doing that for sure, and just not be showing so much of that on YouTube, because it's not adding to their lives in a positive way, and that's all I want to do. So while most people understand that like it's just part of my healing journey and have been on my channel for a while and kind of know my story and my background, a lot of people don't, and I just don't want to trigger people. I know that I'm going to no matter what I do. I really don't want people to think that you have to be sexy to be spiritual. Like that's very not necessary, and that's just one of the healing modalities that have worked in my life. And I know that when I'm an elder, I feel like people, as they grow older now, it's not as synonymous with becoming an elder and maturing spiritually, but I really hope to be that like wise old grandma. I will definitely be walking around naked and just be in my space in the woods naked, and I can't wait to share that. I know that people will see that and be like, whoa, that's so powerful, or like, wow, that's amazing to see her embracing her body and all of her wrinkles. And right now, because I do have what a lot of people would consider closer to societal norms and beauty standards body, it's just like, well, fuck her for showing off, you know, instead of like, yeah. I just don't like that feeling. So yeah, I don't want anyone to feel jealous or just bad when they see my photos. And I know that's healing that maybe some people have to do within their own conditioning, but I will be taking a step back from that. Except I am about to go back to Hawaii, so on Instagram I will just live my life, but on YouTube I definitely want to be more mindful. And I don't think that we have to fully repress this human experience, because we are in this body for a reason. I don't think that like this human life should just be full of torture and suffering, self-induced suffering. I think that we should use our bodies and the scientific knowledge that we have on our bodies and our breath and on yogic movement and see how we can attain enlightenment while being in this human form. Yeah, I think that this life should be beautiful and should be full of seva, of service and giving to others, and at the same time like finding our own inner liberation. And however you have to do that, I support it, whether that is Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism or Jainism or Sikhism. I think that we should just support each other and not try to be right all the time or push our beliefs on other people, because they may work for us but they're not going to work for everyone. And yeah, I just want to end this video saying that, because this is just the way that I have found freedom within my own heart and my life. And I definitely recommend you continuing to do your own inner work to find your own kind of like guide map of like, okay, so these are the main events in my life that fucked me up. Now, where is the route outward, which is really the path within? Like, what is it that will work for me in this time? And just make your own little like roadmap. But I also think that I will live my life in a very traditional way in a few years, at least for a year, celibate and maybe meditating in a cave and just experience what it feels like to renounce worldly things, just to see if it works for me, and maybe it doesn't, and just to experience it, because sometimes you don't know what works for you until you try it. So who knows what I will experience during that time. But yeah, I'm just really open, and I think that when we are fully set in our ways and believe that our way is the only way, it can just make us very jaded and oblivious to the potential that we have to grow, I guess. So this video is really rambly. I don't really know what exactly inspired it, but I literally don't even know. Sometimes I feel like I black out when I'm making these videos, and I'm just like, what did I just spend the last hour talking about? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with sensuality and sexuality and spirituality. I think it's all valid, and I just both embrace this human world and the spiritual realms, because I think if you have too much of one and not enough of the other, you can kind of like be off balance and go a little crazy. Because when I started my spiritual journey, like many people do, you just want to fully rest into your spirit self because it feels so true and right. And then it's like, well, what do I do in this human body? Like, this life sucks, and I don't want to feel like this life is a trap. But I definitely have, and that's part of the reason why I really started struggling with disassociation, was because I was almost using meditation as a way to escape my problems and just feel good and just rest in the blissful state of nothingness. But I was like, but I'm in this human life, like I can't run away from my human nature. And that's kind of what I've been using Tantra for, and finding my own middle path to just enjoy this human life. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this random rambly video. If you would like more, let me know. I have a lookbook coming this Wednesday, so I'm really excited about that. It's really cute. And yeah, I love you so much. I'm sending you love, and I'll see you in a video soon. Bye!